Thank you to those in the previous Canucks video who commented CBC. If you want a chance to be featured in the next one, then hey, stick around to the end of this video here. But today we're going to be going over Jim Benning because he had himself an appearance on Donnie and Dhali's Czech TV television show. And because the interview was a very interesting one, we're going to be going over some tweets, talking about what was said, give my own opinions about this, and of course, I'm opening the floor to you to talk to me in the comments as well about what you think about Benning, the conversations here, and the Vancouver Canucks as a whole. So it was a really good get for Dhaliwal and the crew to actually land Jim Benning of all people, and they actually did cover a very wide variety of topics. They discussed the Sedins, they talked about Ian Clark, they talked about the trade rumors, they talked about Benning himself, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But kicking off the conversation here, it's a tweet from Rick Dhaliwal talking about the quotes here. He says on Ian Clark, "We will get something worked out." And if you don't know who Ian Clark is, we talked about this in the previous video, but he's the Canucks goalie coach. He's the guy that made, I believe it was Eddie Lack really good. And then he made Markstrom really good too. And then he made Thatcher Demko really good. He was the guy that made Bobrovsky really good back in Columbus. And the fact that he is expiring now as a free agent in the coaching world is a big deal because Thatcher Demko cited a whole bunch of his own personal success towards the drills and the management that Ian Clark has had of his overall guidance. And so with Ian Clark being an expiring contract on the coach's side of things, it's a very big deal because Thatcher Demko is really good. And, you know, if Thatcher Demko is saying that a big part of the reason why he is good is because Ian Clark helps him out, then it's probably important to bring him back, right? Rick Dhaliwal actually said that in Demko's own negotiations for his contract, he mentioned specifically Ian Clark as to one of the reasons why things were working out well. But Ian Clark did indeed have his own personal deadline, which the Vancouver Canucks didn't send an offer in by, and so now we have this weird limbo where we don't know if there's going to be a contract or whatever, but Jim Benning is coming out here and saying, oh, we're going to get something done, all right. So that's good. Very good right there. Firstly, I do believe that that would be a good decision. Next up, though, on the Jim Benning repertoire today, they talked about Nate Schmidt and the trade rumors that went on there. Remember when Elliot Friedman suggested that people are talking about Miller and Schmidt as two guys who might ask out sooner or later? Well, we already had the JT Miller dismissal right there when Friedman corrected himself and he said from Miller directly, yeah, he said he doesn't want to be traded. We had Nate Schmidt here today. Benning says on the Nate Schmidt trade rumors, I talked to Nate and it's not true. He doesn't want out. And I know there definitely will be some people out there who are thinking, okay, well, why would Benning say otherwise? If he does want out, why would he come out here and say that he wants to stay? And you know, honestly, just hearing it from Benning himself saying, yeah, Nate Schmidt doesn't want out, he wants to stay here. Honestly, it kind of does feel a little bit more secure, in my opinion, because Benning is a guy who doesn't really lie much. Like, oh, you can say the Toffoli stuff was kind of a lie, but I think with Tyler Toffoli and the comments he made that he later rescinded, I think that was more just a lapse in judgment and him just saying whatever it is that was on his mind at that time and then later correcting it afterwards. Jim Benning, we all kind of know this. He seems like a pretty good guy. Like, if he was your friend or whatever, like, you'd like this guy because he doesn't try to go behind your back. He's straightforward. He's upfront and honest with you. Now, Francesco Aquilini's a different story, but Jim Benning seems like that loyal kind of dude to just say whatever it is on his mind. And so when he says straight up, yeah, no, Nate doesn't want out, I think to me there's a little bit more honesty to that says that he's probably telling the truth. And we'll expand a little bit more on Jim Benning as a guy later on in this video. But elsewhere on the Vancouver front, Jim Benning said on the Sedins that, hey, they will help our hockey ops group in team building. Henrik and Daniel want to learn the business. They'll be in our pro scout meetings. They're going to be doing the work and helping us get better. They don't want to be guys that just have desk jobs. And so there's the confirmation right there. Henrik and Daniel Sedin are indeed going to come to the Vancouver Canucks, help them out in a team-building, business pro scouting kind of role. The verbatim quote from Dhaliwal here says, we're talking to the Sedins, we'll figure out a role for the Sedins, there could be an announcement next week. And so, you know what? Honestly, I don't really think that Henrik or Daniel Sedin coming to the Vancouver Canucks would solve all the problems they have. All of a sudden getting Henrik and Daniel here, it's not going to make them cup contenders right away, but what it does do is it adds the minds in the room of two guys who are very knowledgeable in the sport that they play. If this means that when GM Jim Benning goes out there and wants to do the next move that Aquilini wants, if there's a possibility for Henrik or Daniel to go, I'm not sure about that, then I think there's a little bit more value to add to this kind of conversation too. Obviously, we know this could backfire. With Trevor Linden, there was kind of that whole conflict because he didn't really think the team was ready to contend. He wanted to go for like a 4-year rebuild or whatever, something like that. It was a few years ago, I forgot. And eventually, Aquilini and co said no, which is why there was a disagreement and why Linden ended up leaving. So for Henrik and Daniel, hopefully there isn't that same fate, but if there, at the very least, is some more conversations as to what could be the best suit for this team, then I think it's a valuable thing at the very least. Dhaliwal said that the Sedins want clarity on their role before they accept any position, and he mentioned that JP Barry will make sure they do their due diligence. He's the guy that does indeed represent the Sedins. Speaking about Canucks Europeans, though, hey, Vasili Podkolzin. Benning said that he hopes to sign Podkolzin by June 1st, and that honestly is a really interesting quote because they actually asked him, are you going to announce his signing after the Worlds? And Benning said, yeah, probably. So, again, there's that honesty coming to play here. Jim Benning as just a normal guy, just revealing what it is that's on his mind and saying, yeah, okay, Podkolzin, we'll sign him after the Worlds. We know it's not really that big of a secret, but hey, let's get it out there. We're going to do it. Podkolzin, of course, I'm really excited to seeing what that guy's going to be able to do, especially since we have Travis Green coming back. We saw how he was able to put Niels Höglander in a position to succeed right away. I have no doubt that Travis Green, working with Podkolzin with the work ethic he has and the maturity that he has in his game, I think Podkolzin's probably going to be a very good fit in this Canucks system heading into the long-term future, especially with Bo Horvat. Ooh, that's going to be so good. But finally, expanding on one more thing with Jim Benning and this interview he did, there was one last thing that I wanted to talk about. And it's summed up here nicely in an article by Rob Williams on the Daily Hive. Jim Benning says the Canucks fan protests have been hard on his family. And you know what I'm talking about here. We're talking about the Fire Benning banner, the Fire Benning sign in front of Rogers Arena. Hashtag Fire Benning has trended more than once this summer, heck, this year in Vancouver. And it's been met with some criticism. Others have enjoyed it a lot more. We had some people on Sportsnet radio, I believe, saying, oh, this is a guy you're begging for him to lose his job. How about instead of a Fire Benning, it's a thank you, Jim? And then we had thank you, Jim also trending as well, because that definitely softens the blow a little bit. But either way, we had Fire Benning, thank you, Jim, all these things trending a lot throughout the season and in the offseason. And talking about the Fire Benning things, Benning said this: I understand the fans and their frustration. We're frustrated too. I'm doing the work every day. We're moving forward. We want to get back in the playoffs next year. Oh man, okay, they really want to do it, eh? And I believe we have a lot of core pieces in place. So apparently it's not the 2-year plan anymore, it's making the playoffs and hoping that they be lucky enough to actually succeed in the playoffs. Disregarding that though, Rob Williams writes that Benning appears to have a thick skin, and certainly facing criticism comes with the territory for being an NHL GM in a Canadian market. But Benning did admit that it's harder on his family. He says this: it's been harder on my family. I've got a teenage daughter, and you drag your families into these types of situations. It's for sure harder on my family. I'm busy doing the work, I've got to move forward, but I'm not gonna lie, it's hard on the family. And I'll just say this right here, if you're going out there talking to Jim Benning's daughter or whatever, threatening his family, his wife or whatever, then please stop. That's not really cool. I get that Jim Benning, the GM, has been more than questionable throughout his few years here in Vancouver. Sure, drafting Besser and Petey and Hughes was great, but a lot of these other moves, the acquisitions and the progression with the team, decisions on who to keep and who to let go, all that stuff, it's been whack. But that's Jim Benning, the GM. The movement of Fire Benning, while I don't particularly disagree or agree with the movement or whatever, it's mostly just considering who is better fit for the job of GM. Who's going to go out there, whether it's Jim Benning or some of the other free agent general managers that are out there on the market, who's going to go out there and make this team better in the long term or in the short term. And Jim Benning as a guy, as a family man, as a person, a human being, is unrelated to his hockey ops role. As I said, man, Jim Benning the dude seems like a pretty cool dude. He's honest all the time, it seems like. He doesn't really go behind people's backs and says anything that he is dishonest about, but his job as a GM hasn't really been the best. So The entire movement is mostly about his role as a hockey man, a general manager, a Vancouver Canucks executive. So going out there and bringing his family into this, if anybody out there is doing that, please don't do that. It's not cool. So either way, talk to me in the comments what you thought about Jim Benning and the entire thing that he had yesterday where he was on TV talking about the Sedins and Podkolzin and the trade rumors, Nate Schmidt and all that. If you made it to the end of this video, comment down in the comments Alex Pietrangelo, because we're talking about the Nate Schmidt thing and whether or not he requested a trade, and the entire reason why Nate Schmidt is even on the Vancouver Canucks is because the Vegas Golden Knights were going out there trying to free up some cap space and a positional space on the roster to sign Alex Pietrangelo. So, that's our comment section keyword. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. Talk to me in the comments what you think about all this stuff. Hope you enjoyed this with Josh Rose 99, and bye.